Cool. So, hey, Gavin, you've got kind of a whole lot of experience, and I did a quick look on your website and things, but could you just sort of give me a bit more of an overview about your background? Because you're from US, and then you're in Spain, and then you're in New Zealand, and you're doing touring. Tell me about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. This is my favorite topic to talk about. Why else would I do comedy? Well, originally, yeah. So from the States, from Atlanta, Georgia, which just above Florida, and lived there until I was about 7 or 9 years old. Honestly, I'm so bad. I can't fully remember. But my parents then moved to Spain. And so they just hippies, love to travel. So lived in Spain, right above Malaga, which is on the south coast.
Yeah.
And then we lived there. We actually lived in this tiny village called Canías, and it has like 700 people in it. Tiny, tiny, tiny. And lived there for about 18 months. And then, got fluent in the language, but there was just no work. So we had to move, obviously, and came to New Zealand. And my dad's from Risington, Hawke's Bay kind of area.
Hey.
Yeah, it's a small provincial New Zealand. And so we came to Hawke's Bay for a bit and then decided to go to Wellington, and kind of just lived in Wellington till I was about 18. I'm 26 now. Then I went traveling, went overseas, gone for about 2 years, came back, did my degree, went to Melbourne, and then came back. And it was actually 2018, right? And when I got into comedy, it was on the day after my birthday, funnily enough, and did one show. We went to an open mic, and I was like, I could do this. Went up, went really well, did another show, and then just crashed and burned so hard. But I had gotten like the bite, and so I just kept doing it. And I've just been doing it for about coming on 4 years now. This will be my 4th year that I'm currently in. And I've just been plugging away at it. And moved up to Auckland recently. And it seems like every time I move up to Auckland, we get like a new COVID outbreak. So it just seems like pretty much at this point, if I move up to Auckland, that we're going to have a COVID outbreak. I've done it twice now. And it's currently in Wellington. Pretty honestly, if no fans are following me, but COVID is. So I don't know. It's loyal. But so back in Wellington at the moment, just doing the Fringe Festival. And then I shoot down to Dunedin next week for the Dunedin Fringe Festival.
Wow, and so you're getting around. Yeah.
Trying to. I mean, I love I love just being able to get out and about and check out the different towns. And it's the perfect excuse to travel because it's all a tax write-off. You know what I'm saying? And it's all tax deductible. And so, just travel around as much as I can. And soon to be in Whitianga on the 9th of April, which will be awesome.
So that we are just really excited to be having you and the trio coming here.
Yeah.
Something I guess just to talk about with being also in these COVID times that we're living in, it was a question I guess I kind of just had noted down here. It's like, how has that been as a performer? Because the performing arts sector, event sector, I mean, they're one of the sectors that have been hugely affected and compromised by what you can and can't do, by lockdowns and then by the limitations in numbers. So it's really exciting that you're traveling around and you're coming here, because we've had so many large scale events that have had to be postponed or cancelled. How's that been operating in that environment?
Well, it's kind of like there's a few aspects to it, right? Like a lot of the shows get canceled, so that's a pain in the ass. So a lot of shows get canceled, a lot of things get switched around. Reduced capacity can really hit you quite a bit as well. So you need almost, in many cases, you have to half your venue's capacity. There's some venues where it's like, we can sit 100, and then now we're down to 35. So margins get cut thin. The great thing is the government does an amazing job of supporting in many, many regards. I mean, I think we're one of the only countries in the world where comedy is funded in part by the government, right? So there's a lot of support for that, which is fantastic. But I think it does
in the way of relief packages, or
relief package, and also local councils help out a lot as well. So Creative New Zealand does a lot of funding. If you're in Wellington, there's a bunch of funding that comes from just the local council itself. which is amazing. But honestly, it creates like an extra element of just, I mean, one of the big problems that we're seeing is just bars and venues themselves are closing. You know what I mean? Like, so you're having to like factor in that as well. It's like, well, I don't even know if this venue is going to be open.
It's heartbreaking across.
It's really rough. Yeah, it's so tough. It's like, and then you have issues where it's like, yeah, we'd love to host you, but we don't have the staff, you know, like half of them are out sick or have COVID, or there's just so many like new kind of obstacles. But in saying that, I mean, everyone's on the same field, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, you're not really, I don't feel by any means like hard done by. It's just kind of the environment that you're playing in. Flipping it around though, you got a bunch of new topics to talk about, right? And I do think that people are super willing just to get out. You know, we noticed it with Wellington Fringe, even amidst like the huge outbreak. We had like 2 sold out shows and then a potential third almost like just reached capacity. And so I think people are wanting to get out. And I think as well as in New Zealand, people are super supportive. And I noticed something else, actually. I was reading this article. Apparently we have like some of the highest rates of volunteers. Like people volunteer at a much higher rate than any other country here. And I think you can see that in just people's willingness to support the shows, whether or not they're like, yeah, it's going to be a great show, or it's like, you know what, my main focus is actually supporting the art. And then if it's a good show, happy byproduct. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And I see a lot of that. Now with our show, you're lucky because you're going to get both of that. You're going to get a good show and supporting me to pay off my student loan. So putting that out there.
We love to do what we can do.
yeah. Pay for my history degree.
Hey, I'm going to ask you a bit about the show in a moment, but there was just something while it's in my head. You said, because it resonates with me having talked to a lot of small business owners. You said that in one of your early shows, you kind of crashed and burned, but you'd got bitten by the bug. So what was it about you? Was it your tenacity, or what made you go, right, okay, this hasn't gone well, but I'm going to just keep on keeping on and do your next shows? And you've been performing now for, you said, I think it was 4 years, eh?
Yeah, 4 years.
So what was it that you went, what turned you around and went, right, I'm going to
keep sticking with it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think for me personally, there's like, I don't really have hobbies. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like for me, it's more just, it's all or nothing. I've never really been like, and that's in many aspects of my life. Like, it's not really moderation per se. It's just kind of like fully commit or don't do it at all. And so that definitely filtered through within comedy, but it used to always be the same with like sports, education, even though I wasn't that great at it. It was just like really, really knuckling down. And then I think as well, like the constant need for validation comes from comedy as well. And obviously comedy is just like that instant feedback loop. And somebody asked me, like, does doing stand-up make you happy? And I don't know I think it actually just gives you, for me at least, it gives me purpose. Do you know what I mean? I really like being able to work towards getting better at something, you know, and just constantly having like at least that center pillar. And I think a lot of people my age or younger, at least, is that I don't know what I want to do. I don't really know like what the point, there's a lot of that. And I think with, at least for me, comedy it's like this endless, never ending kind of cycle of you're always trying to improve, and just having that, like even in my day where it's like I've got nothing to do today, it's like, well, I can always write, or I can always listen to a podcast. It's always being able to come back to, I have this pillar that is never fully finished, and I can always come back to and constantly work on it. And I think that comedy appealed to me, and as well as the other guys that are doing the show with me as well, and doing the whole show as a collective. It's very similar, you know what I mean? It's very much like we just have that thing where you just want to build on it. You're constantly trying to having that central focus. And I think a lot of people my age as well just don't resonate with working an office job. And we all do it, you know what I mean? But and hopefully their bosses don't see this. They love their job. But it's just it's something outside of that. And it's self-driven as well, and self-motivated. You feel very in control of how you spend your time, which is another thing a lot of us kind of resonate. I know that was very convoluted and very jumbled up, but I hope that was clear.
I think that's awesome, because I think a lot of us get those points where whether it's we think, oh, we've not had the best experience, or we've had that experience you first had. So it's that drive for you and that love of it. And
for sure.
Yeah, so fantastic. Yeah, thank you.
And I think the built-in community as well, right? I think a lot of us are just striving for like a social group, and with comedy, that's the great thing. You can show up anywhere in the world, and if there's comedy there, you can instantly have like a very deep connection with pretty much anybody you're gigging with, something very intensely in common. And yeah, I think that's mainly what a huge part of it, not mainly, but a huge part of what the appeal is to stand-up comedy for many of us.
That's awesome. It's the camaraderie then.
Yeah, for sure.
Camaraderie. I don't know how you could.
Yeah.
Camaraderie.
Hey man, I don't know. Okay. I do comedy.
Hey, tell us about the show. So it's Autumn Stand-Up Comedy.
Yes.
It's on April the 9th at the Monkey House Theatre, which we're looking forward to. And
have you been there before?
Yes, many a time.
So cool. I checked it out 2 weeks ago. Awesome.
It's a really cool venue, and you've got 2 shows on, and you've got Vasu and Connor joining you as the trio. So tell us a bit about kind of where the Autumn stand-up came from. And you've, because it's, have you toured it outside of Whitianga as well?
This will actually be the first time that we've done a show together. We were supposed to do one in Auckland just to kind of warm up for Whitianga, but COVID, obviously. So yeah, this will be the first time we're doing it. About the show itself, 1 hour long. We're just going to be each doing 20 minutes. It's kind of like a distilled version of, for me, it's my Fringe show that I've been running, but it's like a much more condensed, tighter, sharper version of that. Whereas like the Fringe show would be a bit more drawn out, a bit more crowd work. This is going to be joke. Same with Connor, same with Vasu, less so on the Fringe Festival front, but a lot more of a condensed, sharper 20 minutes. I think as far as what you can expect, anecdotes, observations, just your standard comedy, each of us kind of bring a nice, unique perspective to it as well. I mean, we're all from very varying backgrounds. You know, Vasu being from Christchurch, I think he talks quite heavily with his cultural background as well, being a second generation Indian, is able to bring that perspective. Myself being just, Kiwi, I've lived here most of my life, but I sound like an American. And so kind of weird, you get that you're told what you are rather than how you feel you are. And then Connor, very much like, I think Connor, the best reference as far as comedy or comedians go out there, very similar to a comedian called Mark Normand, very much just like the New York jokes per minute, very one-liner, very funny, very, very charismatic. And I mean, the show is just your it is your standard stand-up comedy. So if you like comedy, if you like to laugh, it's for you, I would say.
And are we going to see all need that? Yes. Yeah. We all need that at the moment. Have you guys worked together before?
I've worked with Vasu quite a bit. Yeah. We've done plenty of shows together. Now the show, we're good friends. I mean, for me, the big priority is if I can get along with you, we're, doing a show. So we've done plenty of gigs together. Now, as far as producing our own shows together, this will be the first time. But the intention is to run this continuously throughout New Zealand, specifically the Upper North Island, just because of the logistics and transport and stuff like that. But this will be our first time doing 2 shows back to back as well. So that'll be interesting and that'll be fun. I think just the repetition of it just makes you sharper and quicker. And just trying to get stage time. I think that's the big thing, is just get as much stage time as you possibly can and just kind of iron it out as best as possible.
And so first in Whitianga, which is awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
And so what was the appeal of Whitianga? Was it your connection with Beat Ferry Productions?
Yes, exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so some buddies of mine went and did the summer stand-up, Summer Beach Town, or Summer, I can't remember the exact name. But one of my buddies, Danny Sewell, who was on that show, went to that venue after the show, checked it out, and was like, you need to do a show here. Put me in touch with them, reached out, and they just seemed like great guys, Casper and Molly. So I was like, absolutely, let's do it. Cool little bar area. And plus, we're going to be put up for free at the theater afterwards, so I can sleep on the ground. Can't wait.
The life of a comedian.
Yeah, that's luxurious for us, actually. Yeah. And so, it was honestly, it was the theater, and I love the area as well. I went there with my partner just not long ago. We stayed in Tapu, but drove over to Whitianga as well. And you just so like, I feel like it probably gets much busier during the holiday periods, but I just liked how calm and relaxed everything was, and the beachfront as well. Went to Cathedral Cove, that was fun. I really like the environment. It's just like a nice laid back town. And I think I find as well, I find it really fun and important to perform to different audiences outside of like your Wellington, your Auckland, or your Christchurch. You can very easily kind of get wrapped up into a bubble when you're performing to those audiences. It's important to get out there and get other perspectives as well. I think you can get really locked into what you think comedy or what New Zealand as a whole really wants. It's the same in the States, right? It's like, you know, you perform in the cities, but you actually don't know what it's like outside of those areas. And so, yeah, it's basically just more or less about becoming a more rounded comedian as well, you know?
I guess that's something, yeah. Each time you stand up there, you don't know how your audience is going to react. So that's part of it.
Totally. And it's different every time.
Is that terrifying or fun?
You know, I don't think you know until about like 30 seconds of telling jokes and you're like, oh, this is going to go amazingly. Or to be honest, like I almost prefer doing it outside of the bigger cities. I feel like in smaller towns and just like outside of Auckland, people are just a bit more loose, a bit more willing to have fun, a lot more forgiving, and just friendlier audiences, which is weird. Still want to get booked in Auckland, so keep that in mind. But I really enjoy. Yeah, it's people are more up for it. I find in my experience. Now, I haven't performed everywhere in New Zealand, but the audiences are a lot warmer, I find.
So there's a bit of a difference between regional and city.
For sure. Yes. Yeah. You guys are more down to earth.
Okay, great.